G'day guys, it's Sam Daines from Ardento here. Today we're going to take a look at Zia Agents in the Zoho platform. Now, I've been holding off making a video about Zia Agents for a little while, mainly because I didn't quite think it was ready yet. Now, the platform still has a way to go. I still think there's a lot that Zoho need to get right with this piece of software for it to really become a force in the agentic AI space, specifically within the Zoho ecosystem. But it is definitely now at a point where I think there are some real business cases that can be solved with this tool. So what I wanted to do today was kind of go through really getting started with the tool, at least kind of being able to build out an agent, understanding the different components of an agent, how to test the agent, and kind of at least give people an opportunity to be able to play around with this themselves. There's definitely a lot more that we won't cover in this around kind of the deployment side of the agent, but we'll probably follow that up with another video. But what I'm sharing on my screen right now is Zia Agents. And this ultimately is free if you want to use one of the Zoho hosted models. So it's definitely worth jumping into now, especially if you already have a Zoho subscription. Just head to ziaagents.zoho.com and kind of go through there. It's really what I would consider in beta or early access right now. When you come into the system, you're going to be presented by kind of a prompt window here. Now, you can create, if I go down the agent menu on the left hand side, you can just create an agent from scratch, which I think once you've created your first one or two, you're probably going to do that. But if you do want to experience kind of creating or kick-starting the agent off without having to go through the creation process, you can do it using a prompt. So let's kind of do that. I've got a use case here where I've got some contacts in my demo system where the full name of the contact is kind of in the last name field. And the contact themselves, if I flick over here into this demo system and show you, and the contact themselves is without a first name, but has a first and last name in here. Now, I picked this because we want to read some data from the CRM contacts module, and we also want the agent to write back. So it's kind of doing two things there, which adds some complexity. And this is actually something that happens in my live CRM. So we get this scenario where contact's full name ends up in the last name field due to some integration with things like Zoho Desk. So this is a real use case that, I actually built this in our live production Zoho environment. So we're going to start by getting a prompt. So search my CRM for contacts with full name in last name field, and then split out first and last names and update contact record. That's what we want our agent to do. Let's send it across. And so look, depending on the type of model that you're using here, we will go through a few different ones, and depending on, if you're using a third-party model, these prompts can take a little bit of time to process. Cool, so it's generated our model, right? So it's created some instructions here. Search the CRM for contacts where the last name field matches the full name provided. Kind of, it's maybe needs a bit of work there. For each matching contact, extract the first name and last name. Update the contact read in the CRM with the extracted first name and last name in the respective fields. Ensure any handling. So this is the prompt that the agent's going to use, and we're going to have a look at that. It's just a name. It's talking about the models, and we'll drill down into those as well, and then the tools that we've got here as well, which we're going to explore, and then some guardrails. So we're going to head and create this agent now. Okay, so now we're in the agent screen. So this is an agent that has been created by the prompt. Now, if you were going to go through and create an agent from scratch, you're just going to be populating all of those values at the same time. This is where you can indeed use a model that Zoho is hosted, and there's kind of sort of two. I believe the 30B MOE model is being deprecated. So you got this Quen Text 14B model and a GM 4.7 Flash model. So they're the two Zoho Zia hosted models. They do have native integration with OpenAI. If you do use this though, you are going to be billed for the tokens that your agent uses. There is an option, if I go into the settings, for those who want to know a little bit more, is you can go down to plans and billing. This is, so the Zoho hosted models are free right now. They're probably not going to be free forever, but they're free right now. Or you can use the OpenAI LLM and you'll be charged for it. You're going to add some credits onto the plan. You can BYO. So if you've already got some tokens or a token budget with Google or with Anthropic or with OpenAI, you can set up a BYO, just plug in your API key and you can use that model there. Obviously, you're going to be sending your Zoho data if you're working with the Zoho system off to the third-party model. So you kind of make that determination. I did a play around with a bit of OpenAI too, and I probably prefer that over some of the Zia models, but I believe the Zia model really kind of it does the trick. All right, so I'm going to go to my agents now. And let's take a look at a couple of things. So first things first, you really do want to take some time making sure that your prompts here are accurate. Because this is really the prompt that the agent is going to use when it begins to execute its requests. So search the sham for contacts with a last name field. It's really where the full name appears in the last name field and the first name is blank. So that's really kind of what I want it to do. For each matching contact, for each contact found, extract the first and last names, update the contact record in the CRM with the extracted first and last names in the respective field, and then handle some errors. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. I can't overstate how important the prompt is. The prompt is really going to, if you have a messy prompt or an unclear prompt, your agent is not going to do what you want, and it actually can be pretty dangerous. You can add a knowledge base. So think of your knowledge base here, and it really is documentation. If you've got some background knowledge or background documentation that you want the agent to be able to look, which is great if you've got a complex agent for dealing with maybe customer support queries or sales processes, and you've got a set process or a set of rules and things that you might want them to do. Maybe it's business IP, maybe it's background knowledge around certain processes. You can upload those here. I don't need anything in this. It's just going to be a straight up CRM one. We've got some guardrails here. I'm not going to cover guardrails right now. There are a few guardrails already in place, but if you have a good, clear set of agent instructions, then you really shouldn't be too worried about guardrails. If you have a very loose and confusing prompt, then you're going to want to make guardrails in there, like don't, delete any records or anything like that. One of the things you're also going to need to absolutely get right and understand is the tools. Now, Zoho, based upon our prompt at the start, has chosen two tools. And you can think about tools as in this is what the agent uses to be able to execute what you're asking it to do. So in this example, I need the agent to be able to interact with our CRM data. I need it to be able to find data, so find contact records. So we've got the Get Contact Records tool here, and we need it to update contacts. So the prompt at the start has selected these tools. Now, one thing I will say is the state of the tools that are packaged up in this system currently, and I've really only looked at the Zoho one specifically. If I look at CRM under here and you look at all the tools, there's over a couple of hundred tools. some of these tools fall short of really, especially when it comes to updating and writing back data, especially if they don't have all of the fields in there. They're not going to be too contextually aware of the way that you have the fields and modules in your system. So if you have trouble with your agent in testing mode and you're not getting it to update correctly, or it's just not behaving the way that you want, you definitely need to be looking at the tools and making sure that the tools are fit for what your agent needs to be able to do. So there is a little bit of technical understanding here. Essentially, these tools are going to be kind of API endpoints that the agent's going to be able to use to interact with CRM. They are quite restrictive. So Zoho's kind of released a bunch of predefined tools as part of Zia Agents, and they're probably on the safer side, and rightfully so. So they're not going to be able to do mass amounts of changes in these systems just to really kind of put some baked in guardrails into, what your agent can do. I'm going to leave these tools here for now. You're going to also want to look at parameters. This is equally important. It's not clear here, but if you don't have these parameters ticked, the agent will not interact with these parameters. And you can see that this is the update single record tool. It's saying, well, what fields within this tool do I want my agent to interact with? And you've got the option here, is the agent going to be responsible for getting the information for the account name? Is it some sort of trigger, or am I going to set a specific value? If you don't have the fields ticked that you want your agent to interact with, it's not going to be able to do so. Even if it's in the tool, but that's not ticked and you're not defining how the agent can interact with these tools and these parameters rather, it's not going to be able to get those values. Obviously, it's going to want the record ID. That is a way that it's going to try and update the record. Now, if I scroll down to get contact records, it's just a basic fetch, right? So it's looking at fields. From trial and error, I have discovered that this update single contact record update tool is not sufficient, mainly because for some reason it does not include the contact last name. And the contact last name is a required field in Zoho. So if the tool tries to make an update to this here and we want it to update the last name field, it's not even available in the tool. So the agent just won't be able to. It will try to make updates, but it will fail. And either it will just crash out or it'll kind of complain about not being able to write an update. So we're going to get rid of this tool. We're going to get rid of the update single record tool. And I'm going to, let's get rid of it here and just hit add. I am going to talk to you now about custom tools. So here's again all the tools that are available. But luckily, Zia Agents has given us the ability to create custom tools, which is actually really powerful and also dangerous. You have the ability here to essentially create a tool that can have unlimited access in the systems that you're working with. So if I were to create a tool that had really broad capabilities in my CRM system, this agent is going to use this tool, and if it's not prompted correctly, you could really get in a scenario where the tool is not going to be able to update things correctly, or worse yet, it's going to make a mess of your data. So I suggest you really run this either in a test system, or something a lot less sensitive. It really can have wide-ranging effects on your data. So consider that when baking in tools. But I've already created a tool here, but I'm going to go through the process of creating another tool. I'm going to add a tool. Now, to add a tool in Zia Agents, you need to pass the agents something called a YAML file, YAML, YAML, which means YAML ain't a markup language. Interesting kind of term. But what this actually is, and I've got one here that I prepared earlier, a YAML file, if we load it in, it is a plain text file readable by the human eye that it is essentially kind of a markup file of sorts. It explains to the agent what the tool can do, how to handle messages and errors, how to authenticate, and what endpoints it should have available when using this tool. So these tools, a tool can have multiple uses. It doesn't just have to be singular, like mine's just dealing with updating contacts, but a tool can really have wide-ranging functionality. And if you are going to explore creating your own tool, Zia Agents needs to be in what's called the Open API 3.0 format. You can ask ChatGPT for help here. You can, do some research online and construct your own YAML file if you need a custom tool. When you add a custom tool, you update it. I can probably actually add another tool. Let's do that so that I can demonstrate this, because I think it's an important part. I think I've got another YAML file here. Yeah, here we go. So I've added a second YAML file, fetch contact records. I actually don't need a custom tool to fetch contact records because the baked in tool does this fine. But once you've added a tool, you can see it's not available, it's not ready. So you have to actually tick it and go test tools. You need a connection. It's complaining, so I'm going to click auto create, and what it does is it'll look at the kind of the YAML file and the API that's there, and it's going to establish an API connection with the right scopes to allow me to use my tool. And so then once I've got that, I think we're good, and then I can say test. And I've got an error here expecting one parameter. So, okay, I'm going to say we'll just return one page of test results. It says now one of the expected parameters, fields. So let's put like last name. Success. So, my tool accepts, what fields do I want to return? Now I'm importing this value, but of course when my agent's running it, my agent is going to populate that field based upon the prompts I've given it. So I said, I want to know the first name and last name. So my agent is going to pass into this tool the parameters that it thinks it needs to be able to get the job done. But once you've got this done, your tool is you can mark it as ready and it is available to use. So that's the process of creating a custom tool. I'm going to go now back to my agent, tools, add my new tool. I'm going to add custom tools this time. I'm going to add my custom update record tool, and I'm going to add that to my agent. Now I'm going to review the parameters. Because what does my agent need? It needs the names to be able to do this. Even though my update tool has these fields in it, but notice it doesn't have every field. I've just selected a few fields. I haven't given my tool kind of crazy amounts of scope. I've given it what it needs to be able to kind of make these updates. Here you got first and last name now. I'm going to let the model determine the values for those. Right, now we are going to manage connections. I need to tell it what CRM system to connect to, and I need to authenticate it. And I've already got one here and I can use. This is just allowing the agent now to authenticate with the CRM API and make that connection. My agent is now essentially ready to test, and I can use this test agent option at the top here, which allows you to actually prompt and interact with your agent. To testing the agent now, and we're just going to ask it, to show me 3 contacts that need fixing. And you can see that it's actually now returned the records and actually process the update. So this is a great example of where maybe my prompting isn't clear enough on that, I wanted it to just show me the data, but in this example, it's actually gone ahead and made the updates. And so if I jump across into like a contact now in my CRM, you're going to see that it's actually made that update. But that's a great example of exactly how the agent has now kind of not run and executed its process. Again, this is just in the test mode too, right? So this is not even having my agent deployed, which is really kind of the next step where you can deploy it as a connection which has an endpoint that you can call, or as a digital employee inside of the CRM. And there's probably a whole lot more we can unpack there. But hopefully this was useful, guys, and it kind of highlights, this is now kind of a working agent that was able to retrieve live data from a CRM and write back that data just with a few simple prompts. It was really no code. Now, of course, I could do this in a workflow using Deluge code directly in the CRM, and my use case is quite basic. But this was all done with very limited technical expertise, essentially just natural language prompting. Obviously, creating your own custom tools, I think, is going to be key to really making Zia Agents work for you and your business case. But it's, as a system that's in early access now, I'm really starting to see this thing take shape. And I think having a set of your own Zia Agents running and doing some of this regular data work within your Zoho ecosystem is something that is going to be useful for all businesses, and it's getting better every single time I look at it. Hopefully that was useful, guys. Chat soon.